Hi everyone, it's me, Marcy Lamberson, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a rat. Now I know not everybody thinks that rats are the prettiest beads, but let's face it, we've got a pandemic, we might as well learn how to make them. They're good animals. We actually had some for pets when we were kids, so I'm kind of fond of the ones that we had at least. Took me a little while, but they're good things. Anyhow, I'm going to turn this camera around and show you a few things, and then we'll get started. So first of all, I wanted to show you the bead that we're going to be making. Here is the rat. And this one I had made out of double helix soft glass, but you can see the eye, the ears, the round part for their legs, the tail that comes up. And I do love double helix because I can get all these wonderful different colors on it. But for today, we are going to be making it in just a solid effetre gray instead. And let me show you those. So the one that I chose was just a medium gray, but I thought you'd be able to see the detail pretty well. And also we're going to use a black stringer, and this is just a basic black stringer, nothing fancy. I also suggested that you would want to have a marver. Now I do have a torch mounted marver, and it's a wiggly one. You might not see it on camera very much, but I tend to also use a cote marver, and that's what this is right here. It's a Japanese marver. It's comfortable for my hand, it's lightweight, and it's got a very broad reach for it. And I have my stump shaper, and you can see it's very worn. It's about as old as the 20 years that I've been melting glass. Even the handle is worn off, but I love it. It's possible that I might use some tweezers. These are some tungsten tweezers. A pokey tool. Now you have all kinds of pokey tools that you don't have to go out and buy them. You could even just use the end of a mandrel to make an indentation. Just make sure it doesn't have bead release on it. And then here's a tool that I use sometimes, and this is a concave convex plier. It's used for making jewelry, so that's where you would find it. They run somewhere around $15, and you see the indentation there? What it does is it makes like the interior, a curved interior part of an ear or maybe even a flower petal. So next we're going to get this set up, and I'm going to double check to see where my hands are. Let's see whether I can give you just a little bit more. Okay, so I see pretty much where the camera is going to show. And I also have a 3/32 mandrel, and I use Dip and Go Blue Sludge because the stuff wears like concrete. It really works well for me. So let's light up the torch and I will sit down. This is just your basic, I shouldn't say just, this is my trusty miner torch, and I have had this one for almost as long as I've been lamp working. I did start out using MAP gas before and a hothead, but this one has been around. I do have probably about 7 other torches, but I would say I use this 98% of the time. I just really love it. Oh, and before we start, let me also show you my didymiums. You're going to need those, and these have really strong magnifiers on them. So I thought I'd mention that. That's how I get to see the little stuff. Okay, so we're going to do this. It's not that many steps to get this made. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to heat the rod. See, I have just a medium flame on here. And we're going to heat the bead release. And with this bead release, I like to watch it go from the blue gray to a darker gray, and then it goes to a very pale gray, almost white. And then I know it's ready to be used. And we are going to make kind of like a rounded cone for step number 1. And I've also hand drawn your steps for you so you can have it as a handout to remind you. But this will be available also, not only today, but I'll put it up on my YouTube also, so you'll be able to find it again if needed. And you can find all my YouTube videos. I have quite a few lamp working ones if you just search for Marcy Lamberson. Nothing too fancy there. So I am making my rounded cone. And this is, remember, the bottom part of his body. So I cool it down. I'm watching the color temperature as I'm adding glass, and I can see it cooling down. I'm ready to add some more. And a lot of times I'll cool down my glass and heat up my rod and get another gather and then put it on. Sometimes I feed it continuously, and sometimes I do it this way. This way I feel like I have a little more control over it. And I want a nice rounded area for his body. See how it's a little bit smaller at the top, but I see a little mark there, so I need to marver that. Oh, I forgot to show you. We also need something to press with, also some mashers. So I have these, or smaller ones work just as well also. Now, depending upon how large you want his body, is how long you're going to make this. And I'm adding just a little bit more down at the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press it. Not too thinly. We're not going to have a super skinny rat, but we're going to be adding more width down at the bottom with his legs and tail and stuff, so we don't want it too fat either. I mean, it's a plague rat after all. So then we warm it up so it's not super hot, but warm enough that we can press it. And this is the end of step number 1. And I'm just gently pressing it. See how it's still a little bit thick? And there we have that shape on it. Now when you press glass, when it's been hot, you get these chill marks. So we need to take the chill marks off just by hitting it with a little bit of heat on each side. And see, now it's smooth again. So the next step is to press in one side. So it didn't matter if you had it exactly even. This side is a little bit rounder. This side is not as much, a little less glass. And what we're going to be doing is pressing it in on an angle like this. We want it to have, we want the rat to have a chest that's sticking out, and then it's going back towards his hind legs. So I'm heating up the area so it's pretty warm. And I'm just going to press it on an angle like this. Okay? So see how it goes out on this side and then it goes in on an angle. And because it sticks out a little bit on the edges, that glass has to go somewhere. I'm just going to melt it in to his body. Just gently, a little bit of heat at a time. You don't need much to move the glass where you want it to go. Okay, so you see where it's been pressed in a little bit. Perfect. Now we're going to add glass for the neck and the head. And that goes, you've pressed in on this side, it goes right up here at the top of his chest. So we're going to heat up some glass while we're keeping the other glass warm. And you can tell that your other glass is warm enough because see how it's regularly gray here? When I heat it up, it gets a little bit of a glow to it, so I know that it's been staying warm enough. And I do that check on purpose a lot of the time, especially with sculpture. You have so many bits that are different thicknesses. You kind of have to keep an eye on everything all at once. So let's add some neck onto him, and that's just a dot. And I'm holding it straight up so it's sinking down. Oh, my scissors just fell. We're okay. That could have been something. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't swear or anything. Okay, so we've got the neck on him, and I'm letting it cool. It's quite red, so I don't want to heat that up more. but I will warm up the back of him. And next we're going to heat up some glass for his head. And I heated up another gather, and I'm going to put it right on top of the other one. I push down so it's a little bit farther out, sticks out a little bit farther from his neck. I'm letting it cool a little bit so it's changing color, and then I'm going to gently pull out a bit. So it's kind of like a little cone on the end, and I like it kind of long. Now it goes up too high there, so we'll just have to adjust it a little bit. First, we're going to heat up the rest of him. Then we're going to heat up his head. And I'm just kind of patting it closer to where I want it. Glass is kind of nice like that. And I'm going to heat it up, and I'm going to pull the end. And I'm just pulling with my same rod that I've been working with after I heat up the rest of the glass. So here we go. I just touched it on the end and pulled, and then I'm holding it in place for a minute. I'm holding and letting it cool, not cooling. Boop. So now we've got more of a rat head. I just pulled it up and held it in place while it cooled a little bit. Okay, so that was step number 3. We are moving along. We're doing this in 10 steps. So the next one is we're going to add on his, I don't know, I'm going to call them haunches, part of his legs. They're going to be like balls for his leg. And, I was going to give you some information about rats too, so you can tell all your friends. Do you know that a group of rats is called a mischief? I kind of like that name. I think that's cool. I'm heating up a gather, smallish one. I'm going to place it right back here. There are his haunches. And I'm holding it straight up so it's sinking down into the glass. And I'm letting it cool a tiny bit. And after I see it lose some of the rosy glow, then I can go back and heat the rest of the glass. But you see how I'm just barely warming it, making sure that I have the glow. Then I'm going to do the other side. And another rat fact that you should know is that their teeth always continuously grow. Even it's kind of like humans have ears keep growing. So they have to keep gnawing on things. Now the rats that we have had as pets in our household were extremely smart, and they were trained. My kids had them as pets in class, and I said, "Oh Mom, we need a pet rat." And I was one of those types of moms. I said, okay, and it took me a while to get used to it, but I did it. Okay, so we've added step number 4, the parts for their legs, and now we're going to add the feet. Now, in real life, rats generally have little pink feet, but we weren't going to go there. First of all, pink is very expensive. But we're just doing kind of a simplified one. What I'm going to do is just a little stripe along the bottom. And I'm going to extend it out just a little bit past his body. You don't have to extend it past his body, but just to indicate that he's got a foot there, a leg, and the rest of the leg. If you want to add pink on the end, I think they've got cute little feet personally. But I didn't see you guys going through that effort just for a little bit of pink there. So I'm melting the edge into the leg, and that's all we're doing to it. We're keeping the rest of him warm. So now we have the leg and the foot area, and next we're going to add his arms. So I just heat up a little bit of glass, and we're going to make basically an L shape. One of the easier ways to do that is to pull a little stringer in advance, and I did not pull stringer in advance, so I'm going to show you how I do it. I heat up part of my bead release on the mandrel in an area that is not going to get anywhere near my bead. I warm up my bead a little bit to make sure it's not going to crack while I'm paying attention to pulling stringer, and I touch down a small gather. I wait a sec, watching the color, and I very gently pull, and I want it to be about this thick. So I'm just going to hold it for a second. If I need to hold it longer, what I'll do is just dip my bead gently into the flame and keep it warm in between. Okay, so we have this part that we can't use because it will have a little bead release on it. But this part is usable, so we just take the part we can't use and just wipe it right back off onto that bead release. There we go. So now we've got this part left, which is going to be his arm. So I'm going to heat it up, and I'm going to make that L. Push down and pull out just a little bit and flame cut. So maybe you end up with a very short arm. You can add a little bit more, just adding a dot. And as it cools, watch the color. As it starts to lose its color, you can just pull it out with the glass a little bit. See how I pulled it out? You don't want it sticking out too far. You don't want anything sticking out too far because it will be fragile. Okay, so we're heating up where the other arm is going to go. And we push down and pull out and watch it change color till it turns gray again, and then flame cut. There you go. And while that's cooling, let's go back somewhere else and heat up more of the bead to keep it warm, right? Just stay away from the arms until they've had a chance to cool. And if the hands ball up a little bit, don't worry about it. First of all, it will make them a little stronger for you. And second of all, you can always go back and reheat them at the end if you want to. Okay, so we've added the arms. We're on step 7 already. So we're going to indent the eyes and add black dots. First, I have this little ball on the end, which means it would probably explode once I put it back in the flame. So while it's still warm, I just made it into a thinner piece so it's easier to use. Okay, so can you see pretty well where we are so far? We're moving right along. So now we need to indent with that poking thing and decide where you want the eyes. And I tend to think of rats having kind of little eyes, unless you're thinking Disney and then you want to make them fancy. But I'm just doing a little indentation on each side. And if you have special tools for indentation that you want to use, that's fine too. You want them relatively in the general vicinity of each other. And then I have my black. First, I'm going to warm up my bead all over, because that's what we do around here. And I took my black, I heated it up, and I'm pulling it even thinner than what it is. I'm warming up my bead. I'm not warming up too much, just enough to keep it warm. If I warm it too much, I'll lose the shape, right? And I heated up just the end, and I placed it in the little hole. So now we've got an eyeball there. I'm going to heat it up just a tiny bit, make sure it stays. Now I need to give myself a little more thin glass again. So I did that, heating up the bead all over. And when I heat up the bead, I think very carefully, did I hit this spot? Did I hit that spot? I want to be sure I hit it all. So we've got one side, now we're going to do the other. And don't forget, if the spot that you were going to put the eyeball on is too cool, your glass won't stick. So you need to go back and just shoot it with just a tiny shot of heat. Get a little bit of glow, let it cool again, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so we've got the eyes in. Next, we need some ears. And the ears are going to be dots that we flatten. So it's going to go back on the head. I put a dot down, I hold it for a second, and then I release. Go back, heat up the rest of your rat. While that's cooling a little bit, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're not going to mash them yet. So if you don't have anything good to make the ears with, something that will flatten them or round them up, you can stop right there and it's kind of cute. Or you could even poke them with your pokey tool right there. You have options if you don't have the tools that you want. But I'm going to show you how to use this concave, convex. See how it goes down. And then this is rounded here. So I'll just show you what it looks like so you know. I heated up just the ear. And see how I heat from underneath and you can see the glow just on the ear? That's what we're going for. We don't want to heat anything up too much, just the part that we want to use. And I take it and gently mash. See how it makes that nice indentation? And I go back and heat up the rest of the bead, and then I'm going to go do the other side now. Heat up from underneath. See how it glows? I go back and I gently mash. So now we've got the ears. I hope you can see that well. Okay, keep him warm. We're getting close if you can't tell. We need to make a tail for him. So I heat up plenty of glass. I forget how many muscles the rats have in their tail. I want to say it's 200 and something, but I can't remember. But anyhow, they use their tails for balance primarily. It kind of reminds me of, remember those old tightrope walkers and they had that pole for balance? That's kind of the equivalent of what their tails do. Okay, so I heat up where I am going to attach the glass, which is right back here. I heat up the glass, maybe a tiny bit more. Can always take some off. Okay, so hot to warm. Push down gently, pull up, and I'm pulling around, and I'm wrapping it around the body, and then I'm going to flame cut. I'm watching how hot it is right now also. So there you go. We've got the tail attached. I'm going back and warming up that area just so that you can see how it's attached. So now we've got a tail. And the last thing, besides making sure that every part is warm, is I think a nose on him would be cute. And you could do pink, depending upon the color of rat. But I'm just going to do a little black nose at the end. But this is the time that if you need to pull this into a different shape one last time, the very end, now is the time. But I'm happy with it. I'm just going to add a little black tip to his nose, and I heat it up. Push it in, and see how I'm melting it just very carefully so it's nice and attached but not too far in. And if you do melt it too far in, you can always either pull it off with some tweezers, or you could just add a bigger dot on top of it. So this, my friends, is your rat. I'm going to rotate it around. Hope that you can see it pretty well. And next, I better pop this guy into the kiln. Hope you have a great time making these, and thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Here you go. One last look at this rat. There you go. Good luck making yours. Take care. This is Marcy Lamberson. Bye.